Hey, it's Sandman with another edition of my series of the Underbelly of Evansville. Here we have a bit of a tragic story. I knew Patrick Bradford for many years before he joined the Evansville Police Department. He went to Harrison High School and I went to Bosse. I ran with a lot of Harrison kids and Patrick was one of them. I always thought he was a nice guy. I even appeared in a TV commercial for Ray Wall Insurance in the late 80s with him. I would never dream that this guy I knew pretty well would become a convicted murderer. Officer Patrick Bradford was having an affair with a 24-year-old girl named Tamara Lohr. She was a corrections officer at the Vanderbilt County Jail. It seems that this was not a short-term affair, as Bradford had been cheating on his wife Dawn with Lohr for at least 6 years. In the early 90s, there were no cell phones, and the widespread usage of texting and emailing didn't come until many years later. It seemed that Patrick's girlfriend, Tamara Lohr, didn't want to share her boyfriend with his wife. She had sent numerous anonymous letters in the mail to Dawn Bradford. She dropped clues that her husband was having an affair, and this led to several confrontations between Patrick, his wife, and girlfriend. The snapping point came when Tamara Lohr sent letters to Bradford claiming to have sent photos of her and Bradford together to his wife. What went from a carefree affair morphed into murder. Bradford worked the third shift patrol for EPD. Several people saw him the night of August 1st, 1992, shortly after 10 p.m. He stopped to get gas before 11 p.m. and was seen driving by a local restaurant shortly thereafter. During the course of the evening, Bradford made several bogus calls to police dispatch in an attempt to hide his true whereabouts. He claimed he saw a wanted felon walking the streets and called it in. The person in question had an alibi of being at his brother's house. He also responded to dispatch that he was on his way to a hit and run. The officers at the scene said they never saw him. Lies upon more lies. Towards the end of Bradford's shift, around 6:35 a.m., Bradford called dispatch to report a fire at a house on Bakey Avenue. Oddly enough, it was right across the street from where my cousin lives. According to prosecutors' allegations, Bradford had been at Tamara Lohr's house about an hour before he put in the call. It's the prosecutor's theory that during that hour, Bradford entered Lohr's home, stabbed her 20 times along her back, face, chest, and shoulders. And within the stab wounds, Tammy's heart, both lungs, and her carotid artery had been pierced. It was a super violent, super personal crime. It's alleged that Bradford also stabbed Lohr's dog to death before setting the fire to her home. The fire had been set with gasoline, as there was an empty gas can found in the house. Now remember, only a short time before, Officer Bradford was seen at a gas station. Bradford also staged the scene to look as if it were a robbery, cutting a hole in Lohr's screen door and ransacking her home. What seemed like an open and shut case wasn't as easy to prosecute as it appeared. Prosecutors established the motive, that Lohr was doing what she could to end Bradford's marriage and that he didn't want to lose his family. Thus, coupled with the fact that a neighbor saw a marked patrol car outside the Lohr home around the time this all went down, that was pretty damning evidence. Patrick Bradford was arrested shortly thereafter based on circumstantial evidence. He was sentenced in 1993 to an 80-year prison term. Many attempts by Bradford's lawyers have been made to overturn the decision, and all have failed. There are a lot of people who also believe Bradford did not commit this heinous act. Many believe that it was the jealous rage another spurned lover, a co-worker of Lohr's, who fell under suspicion. Nothing came of that theory, and Bradford still sits in the Gray Bar Inn until 2029. I hope you'll read more of my entries in my series called The Underbelly of Evansville at 103gbfrocks.com.